All county offices will be closed on Monday, December the 24th and Tuesday, December the 25th in observance of the Christmas holidays. All county offices will reopen on Wednesday, December the 26th, 2018. All county offices will be closed on Monday, December the 31st, 2018, and Tuesday, January the 1st, 2019, in observance of the New Year's holidays. All county offices will reopen on Wednesday, January the 2nd, 2019.
The County of El Paso Public Works Department is offering sandbags at no cost or requirements to the public. The sandbags are outside of the facilities and are available 24 hours a day. The location of the county facilities are the following: the Road and Bridge Fabens Warehouse, located at 1331 North Fabens Street in Fabens, Texas, 79838. The Road and Bridge Canutillo Warehouse, located at 191 Canutillo Avenue in Canutillo, Texas, 79835. And the Road and Bridge Montana Warehouse, located at 14698 Van Lane, El Paso, Texas, 79938.
Commissioner Andrew Haggerty would like to invite you to his weekly breakfast meeting that takes place every Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. at Danny's Diner, located at 4690 Trans Mountain Road. Every week he has a different speaker who will be discussing topics of interest for the community. So if you live in the Northeast, West Side, or anywhere else in the county, come and join us for the breakfast meeting.
Don't wait in line, pay online. Visit the Financial Recovery Division website at http://www.epcounty.com/budget/financialrecovery.htm to make your payments online or find out more about our kiosk locations. We now accept payments on misdemeanor, felony, and justice of the peace cases.
You can now watch Commissioners Court meetings on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and search for El Paso County Commissioners or El Paso County, Texas. Subscribe to our channels to see our latest videos.
Did you know that you can save money on the cost of your medications? And doing so is easy. In 2015, the County of El Paso launched a prescription discount card program from coast to coast. The cards are available to all El Paso County residents free of charge and everyone qualifies. You can pick up a card at any county office location, Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, or Target pharmacies, or simply print the card at www.coastrx.com. Happy savings!
Did you know the County of El Paso's Purchasing Department is responsible for ensuring that all items and services needed by various county departments are purchased in the manner required by the state of Texas? Whether through formal sealed bids or smaller dollar quotations, the county purchasing team is dedicated to finding the best contracting return on your taxpayer dollars. Additionally, the Purchasing Department is responsible for the tracking of inventory within the county and properly disposing surplus through public auctions. For questions about how to become a vendor and compete for county contracts, or to learn more about public auctions, please contact us at telephone number 915-546-2048.
346 District Court Judge Angie Juarez Barril started the El Paso Veterans Treatment Court program in 2012 for veterans and active service members that have been arrested and charged with a felony or misdemeanor criminal offense. To be considered for the specialty court, the statutory criteria includes be a veteran or current member of the United States Armed Forces, including a member of the Reserves, National Guard, or State Guard, and suffer from a brain injury, mental illness, or mental disorder, including PTSD, or be a victim of military sexual trauma, all occurring or resulting from military service. Call Sylvia Serna, Veterans Program Director, at 915-546-2119, or email her at sserna@upcounty.com for any information.
Did you know that the County of El Paso's fixed asset control and inventory disposal is handled through the purchasing department? Throughout the course of each business year, the county holds live public auctions to dispose of aged equipment, vehicles, furniture, and other items that are no longer needed. To find out about upcoming auctions or to learn more about the county's inventory disposal process, contact the purchasing department at telephone number 915-546-2048.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We have a rather short agenda, but some very important items to discuss. So let's go ahead and get started.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Wednesday, December 5th, 2018. Commissioners Court is meeting in special open session. Item number 2, receive a presentation and provide input on a new county customer satisfaction policy.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. Betsy Keller, County Administrator. This item is a policy that the court previously had discussed with us as a way for our citizens to be able to provide feedback to the county both on complaints, compliments, and suggestions. The policy includes procedures and a form that would be used for individuals to be able to report both compliments on county employees, because as you know, that is we appreciate positive feedback, and then 2, it helps reaffirm what we are doing and doing right. The second section of the policy is about complaints, and this would be used for our citizens and customers to provide negative feedback so that we can improve and reform our behavior and our processes, so it helps us fulfill our commitment to high quality service. So we would accept, validate, and investigate complaints of service and or allegations of fraud, waste, or misconduct on the part of employees. In doing this, we would also be impartial to both the complainant and the employees involved. The information you provided would be used to identify risk, areas for improvement, approaches to resolutions, reducing and eliminating future risk or complaints, and allow us to efficiently allocate our resources. We would not accept or act on anonymous or frivolous complaints for multiple reasons, one being the likelihood of these complaints, by not accepting anonymous complaints, it reduces the likelihood of frivolous or ill-willed complaints. It also does not allow, will prevent a circumventing the ethics code process. It'll also give us the ability to recommend actionable remedies, so we'll be able to know and get feedback from those who submit the complaints. We can follow up with them as well. So when a complaint is received, depending on the nature and the type of complaint, we will route it appropriately. So if there's a complaint of fraud, waste, or abuse, we would most likely route that to the auditor's office. If that complaint also include any type of illegal activities, we would involve law enforcement. If the complaint was a complaint of discrimination or harassment, we would route it to Human Resources for that process. Just so it would depend on the nature of the complaint for how they'll be processed. However, all complaints and compliments will be logged and routed through my office, and then there will be a timeline for responses, and then we will also respond to the person who submits the matter. Within 45 business days after their original concern is filed. And again, this item today is for the court to provide feedback. We have discussed this with department heads and with the county's department heads and sought their input, but we would like the court's input before we finalize this. We are also working with legal to get their input on this as well.
Appreciate it, Commissioner. Commissioner Leon?
Betsy, in looking at the policy, I think it's excellent. A lot of work went into that. The only question that I've got is, and matter of fact, this came up yesterday, if it's routed back to a specific department for their review and the customer or the client or constituent still is not satisfied, is there a mechanism? Because I saw it yesterday, it's still, I think the department could have done a lot better. They didn't. It's under an elected official. Is there a mechanism to get this back to you
Well, the resolution would come to me, and then I would notify the person who made the report. They would always be able to communicate back to me if they don't find that satisfaction to their satisfaction. If they don't find the resolution to their satisfaction, they'd always be able to communicate that back to us.
A lot of people will not call back. They're dissatisfied. They don't call back. Is there a way that we will call them? Okay, this was it was routed back to us. We think it's been resolved. What are your thoughts?
We don't have that as part of the general procedure, but it's something that could be part of the process.
Is one final call just to make sure that there's going to be issues that we just can't satisfy to their level of what they were, whatever they were expecting. But just some sort of call, reconnect with that complainant to make sure that they know that we're working on it.
So generally, the way this right now the procedure is that once the complaint is submitted and it is investigated, I communicate the outcome of the matter directly to the submitter as soon as reasonably possible. And so also if it's an outcome regarding personnel, legal, or other confidential actions, we generally, in our response, it's more general. We don't say the employee was suspended for 5 days and then call back and say, is that okay? We generally say, this is a personnel matter. We have substantiated your complaint. We are taking the appropriate action to respond.
Okay, but what you're saying is that there is some sort of callback to that submitter.
Yes, sir. And our goal is no later than 45 business days after they have submitted the complaint.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I do have two quick questions, Betsy. So what I appreciate is part of what there was a hardship in the anonymous complaints in that we couldn't hold anyone accountable for submitting complaints that weren't founded. And we had no way of communicating back with people. It just caused all sorts of problems. And so this does then allow for us to hold others accountable while we're holding ourselves accountable as well to our ethics code. And does this pertain to this policy at all?
So what this policy, so as you know, under the ethics code, you're not allowed to submit an anonymous complaint. And if you do submit a complaint and it's in bad faith, you can be held liable for your complaint being false or in bad faith. Under this one, it says that we may, give me just 1 second. That any false, misleading, or malicious allegations could result or may result in civil or criminal sanctions. In order for it to result in that, it'd have to be pretty egregious, and two, it would have to involve like libel or slander for us to refer it to the county attorney's office to pursue follow up on that. But that is the idea, is to prevent people from using it to maliciously. One maliciously attack someone unwarranted, and two, the use of government resources to investigate false claims.
And the last that we want to do, and while Ms. Sanchez speaks, is stifle folks from complaining, because we don't want that to be the case. But
Nina Sanchez, Assistant County Attorney. I think with that one, and I took a quick look at the policy and wasn't able to give a little bit more feedback yet. But on that, there is such a high burden on that. So I think we can work on the rephrasing of that. But the ethics code, quite frankly, that is the mechanism in which some of these issues would be raised. But, it's in different context, right? I think the purpose of this one and what we've seen, at least through that ethical advocate program, is that individuals are complaining about a department. It's a personnel matter. So it's not necessarily issues or violations under the ethics code. I believe that provision, though, in terms of any civil or criminal liability, is very high a burden. And so we'll need to work through that to see how we would phrase that, or perhaps delete it altogether from the policy aspect of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last one was, you had mentioned, Betsy, your office tracking all the complaints. And I wonder if there's not a way to streamline that, where I know that we have this new project management software potentially coming online soon. If there's not a way to streamline it where maybe your office enters it, the department can then input, it's kind of a real-time analysis of where we're at with each case so that everyone is kept in the loop and it's not, well, they dropped the ball, they didn't update it, but you can see what they've done. Is that possible? Do we have that capability?
We're working with ITD on exactly how robust we can make this system. Okay. Part of it will be there will be ability to report directly online, so you don't have to download a form. You'll be able to fill in the fields online, and then it'll automatically generate notice to my office that something has been filed. And then, but we're working to see how can we make that a live interactive, whether it be through this or, as you know, we're also working on a 311 type system. That might be if there's an element of the 311 system that we can make where it's assigned just specifically to users to see certain complaints, we may be able to use that same system to track and keep like an ongoing log. In the meantime, my office is very, it's a normal course of our work that we keep logs. For example, we keep logs on contracts, we keep logs on special events. We're used to logging things. And we do not, I hope we'll receive more of feedback via this policy, but we have not seen where this is an overwhelming activity at this point where I'm concerned that it'll be too much for us to manage at this point. But we are working towards making it robust.
Perfect. Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? I know that this is just on here for feedback. It'll come back for a final decision, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments, commissioners? I mean, obviously, you can always email Betsy if you have any other. Okay, excellent. Thank you. So no action on item.
Item number 3, receive a presentation from the Economic Development Department on a draft for the Healthy Food Financing Initiative policy and provide final feedback. Funding is available in General Fund, General Administrative Economic Impact Fund, OP 18633.
Judge, Commissioners, I'm going to have Arturo Marcus from our Economic Development Department go through these slides with you. As you know, we've discussed this Healthy Food Financing Initiative program a couple times previously. So I'm going to, just for history and for public information purposes, I'm going to hit a couple brief points about what this program's about, and then I'm going to ask Arturo to go through the slides. So the Healthy Food Financing Initiative, what we're asking the county is to help us make healthy foods more readily available, create new food retail related jobs, and spur development in low to moderate income neighborhoods. So this is the pilot program. We've asked, the court has set aside $500,000, up to $500,000 for this program this fiscal year. So with these initial funds, what we would do is we would seek to support and accelerate the construction, establishment, rehabilitation, or expansion of food retail and food retail infrastructure that would increase healthy food options for currently underserved residents in El Paso County. And we would be placing emphasis on expanding already existing food retail activities, attracting new food retail activities to the county, and facilitating opportunities for low-interest loans to healthy food financing applicants. The way this would work is an applicant would apply for funding through the county for this program. Initially, this would be the setup. We would then work with, we would then work with the Institute for Healthy Living to determine the eligibility of the applicant and also like a cost benefit analysis of each project that submits for a grant. And then the Institute for Healthy Living would make a recommendation to the county. The county would then take those under consideration, and then the county would decide who to issue these grants to. After the grant is awarded, then they would report progress quarterly to the Economic Development Department, And then the Institute for Healthy Living would also do an evaluation annually, and they would present those to the county for review. These evaluations would also include quarterly unannounced site visits to ensure project compliance. Again, we are looking for these business activities to predominantly serve residents of an area with below average supermarket density or below average grocery sales. And all projects must benefit low to moderate income residents in the county. And this would be accomplished by operating from locations where at least 51% of persons or households are low to moderate income. It also requires that the applicant demonstrate that at least 20% of current or future products sold, or at least 30% of the food retail space, would be used for the sale of healthy and affordable foods. Those are one of the things that would be part of the audits that are conducted to verify that. And again, we would be evaluating these applicants against the increasing the access to affordable healthy food, promoting fruit and vegetable consumption, the experience and the capacity of the applicant to be able to do this, the demonstrating the funding need, the applicant's funding need, support provided by the community, and the products sourced locally. Some bonus criteria would also be the consistency with County of El Paso plans, such as our master plans, local community plans, and community development programs. Leveraging their funding, the applicant leveraging the funding to provide additional funding commitments, and then the ability to attract resources. And this is the applicant outlining additional resources it may attract and bring to the region. We're trying to create a more holistic solution, not just we're not trying to do small incremental solutions. We're trying to really change the system holistically. And with that, I'm going to ask Arturo to go over the slides, and then I will come back to talk to you about the options.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Arturo Marquez with the Economic Development Department. So, not necessarily to reiterate what has just been said, but just to go over the quick facts. Of course, this actually is derived out of the Economic Impact Fund that was approved a couple of weeks ago. So the $500,000 will be allocated from that portion of the fund. Now, in terms of specifics, what we are asking for is the approval within the policy to grant three different options in terms of the funds that are available. These three options are recoverable grants, interest-bearing loans, and a grant which are non-recoverable. We will mention these and how these will be used once if the policy is approved. Now, we did add a timeline in the policy. The only thing is that we are asking to remove all the dates and rather base it on a month-by-month basis. So rather than being December 2018, once and if the policy is approved, we would ask that we judge these parameters on a monthly basis. So, for example, the County of El Paso finalizes the EPCH HFFI guidelines. That would be considered month one rather than December 2018. Okay. Now, we did talk about some partners in terms of who would be involved in this project. The three main ones are, of course, the County of El Paso. The second one would be a food access organization, which in this case is the Institute of Healthy Living, which we have their presence here today. If there are any specific questions that you guys have in terms of their role in this program. And then the third partner would be a CDFI. This is a Community Development Finance Institution. What we want to do is we want to keep them in the policy for future references. We are not seeking to ask for their services in the pilot program, but we do simply want to put them in there in case the program is a success and we want to increase the options. Now, when I say increase the options is, again, if we go back to the first slide, we are talking about the three different disbursement funds, the recoverable grants, interest-bearing loans, and grants. For the first phase, we are asking to simply do a pilot program, simply because the intricacy of doing loans and doing other things that we're asking for in the policy do require some level of expertise in loans, which the county simply does not have at this moment. Okay.
Would it be a recoverable grant or a non-recoverable grant?
So for the first one, it would be a non-recoverable grant, and we will go into the specifics as to what that means and why we're choosing this option in just a second. Okay. So one of the things that Betsy mentioned was some of the ways that the county will hold accountable to these different businesses, in terms of going to visit, making sure that they're reporting, and making sure that they're complying with everything that we're asking for once these grants are allocated. The way that the policy has been written, it allows each one of these different partners to play a role in terms of compliance reporting or completing compliance if these grants are allocated. But for the most part, it would be the Healthy Food, the Institute of Healthy Living. The Institute of Healthy Living that would be responsible to make these unannounced visits to the businesses. Now, one of the questions that came up earlier in the stages of the discussion of this was, what if the business is not compliant with these terms? And through some of the discussions that we've had with IHL, it's come to our attention that when we're trying to do these grants, we're not aiming to simply grant the money to the businesses. We're trying to use it as leverage. So it kind of tackles two of the points that were given in the past discussions. One of them is what percentage of risk is the county taking on these programs, and again, because we are trying to leverage these funds, we are asking the businesses or the ones that are applying that they do seek out additional loans, private loans or any type of loans. That way, the county is not taking the full burden of these grants. So, if a project were to come to us and say, they want to expand part of the business and increase it by the 30% that was mentioned earlier, that the county is not taking the full force of this, but rather that with the assistance of another financial institution or the financial backing of that person or that business is also into this. Okay. Now, again, when we were talking about who are we targeting, the Health Institute has actually already made these findings through a report they've already issued out. So when we're looking at the County of El Paso, we are aiming at the low to medium income households, and we're not shooting darts in the dark here. There's already a study that's already been in place, and there are specific areas that do meet these targets already. So when we're looking at the evaluation of these businesses that are applying for the funds, of course, this is one of the criteria that we're going to be looking into to make sure that both they meet the criteria that we're setting them for, and that they also fall within these parameters. Now, in terms of the partners, again, these are the three partners. The County of El Paso is just kind of overarching because we will be asking for your approval, once these applications come in. The Economic Development Department, what we will do is that we will assess these referrals from the Health Institute to make sure that they do fit with the criteria that we're seeking, in terms of the county, and then essentially it will come back to the court to make sure that or for the final approval. Again, the Community Development Financial Institution is in here simply because, we do want to put them in here for future references, given the success of this program. Okay.
I know previously there has been some discussion about the applicants and what they have to put into this and what they have at risk for these grants. So I will tell you, part of the evaluation process is also how much work the applicant and the applicant has put into the process to even apply for the funding. So as I mentioned, it could be a nonprofit or a for-profit applicant, but they have to be either a regional grocery store chain, a national grocery chain, a singular grocery retail outlet, food hubs, farmers markets, mobile markets, other food retail models that provide high quality, affordable, and healthy food. And as Arturo mentioned, in the future we would also include financial institutions, CDFIs, that will make capital more accessible for HFFI eligible projects. But to be eligible, the applicant must demonstrate a plan to open a new retail outlet or expand an existing small or disadvantaged food enterprise, primarily selling affordable healthy food items. Improve an existing small or disadvantaged food enterprise's ability to stock and sell a variety of affordable healthy food that had been previously limited. Or demonstrate a real estate project that will lease space to a grocery store tenant that meets the criteria under sections A or B above. And another option is increase access to capital for HFFI projects as described above, except that would be for the CDFIs generally. So in the pilot year, it's basically the three additional criteria. So the applicant will have to demonstrate a plan. They have to put work into their request. So generally, I know there's a concern about what do applicants have to lose. Well, first of all, not all applicants will necessarily be awarded, and they will undergo a rigorous vetting process before being selected. So in that, we wanted to bring you all a few options. Based on my discussions with you all, I've heard various feedback. And on that, it led me to form these options for your consideration. So, of course, the first option is approve this policy as is and launch the program in full. We would then start accepting applications. We would vet those applications, working with the Institute for Healthy Living, and we would bring back the recommended projects to the court for approval and consideration. And just like on any of our economic development contracts, we would also continue to monitor and evaluate how the projects are continuing. And that would also be in conjunction with the quarterly reporting and the spot checks being done by the Institute for Healthy Living. Another option, if the court is not prepared to take option one, another option the court may want to consider is approving this but on a smaller scale. And the way that you may consider that on a smaller scale is only authorize us to bring back to accept applications, but only authorize us to bring back and recommend one project to begin with. So that would just be one pilot project that we would begin with this initially. And depending on the size and the volume of that project and the timeline before it starts reporting and the court starts seeing how this works, then we may, even mid-year, come back and be allowed to bring back either another project that was already in this initial applicant pool or go back out for applicants again if the court then sees the return on this investment.
Betsy, is the only difference between 1 and 2 that 1 allows for, within the amount of money, multiple projects? Is that the only difference between 1 and 2?
Yes.
Potentially more as opposed to just testing?
Yes. Now,
okay.
I will tell you, even under item number 1, if a project came in that was large enough, say a project came in that was so large, and we found through the review that project in itself was the most return on investment or was going to be the most benefit to the community served or the largest number of people would benefit from that one, it could end up being only one project. So I want to be clear about that. But if you want to limit it to one project initially, option 2 would do that. And on option 2, I don't say set amount. I say just set a project. So we could end up bringing back under option 2, we could bring back a project that may be a $400,000 project. Okay, and then the difference between that and number 3 is if you want to only set aside a certain amount. And that would then mean that we would probably look at a smaller project or smaller volume projects. So you would allocate only like for this first round, we don't want you to use the entire $500,000. We'd like you to come back with a smaller grant amount. But these options 2 and 3, my logic behind bringing you all those options is I know that this is new. I've heard support for this program from the members of the court, but I haven't. I've heard some hesitation on this is new, a little bit of uncertainty on how does this work. So those are a couple options to give the court the ability to move forward, but possibly on a smaller scale.
Can I also point out just one thing is that, if we approve this policy, we're not in any way spending the money up front. We're saying that we're opening the door to potential projects for them to apply to us, and it's up to us at the end as a commissioner's court as to whether we allocate the money to them or not. And so by approving the project, you're not encumbering any funds. We in our budget process, we set aside $500,000 for this. I would love to keep that open, but we don't even know if that many projects will come out to even use that amount of money. The point here is, I think, we need to open the door and allow the policy to move forward so that we can give these folks the opportunity to use the money. And so I just think that we need to, that needs to be clear, is that we're not encumbering any of the money by creating the policy.
Correct. And each one of these, whatever projects are vetted and recommended, it would still come back to the Commissioner's Court for further discussion and actual approval.
I do have a couple of questions, but go ahead, Commissioner Stout.
I just want to make one more point, and that is when we're talking about the CDFI, we have a CDFI that is poised to match up to the $500,000 that we are looking at using. So, that's a right away. We would also be opening the opportunity for these projects to receive loans that they would also be able to put towards what we're asking them to do, and I think that's it's a one-to-one match basically that we have a CDFI lined up to do that, and so I think that's also something that we need to look at. We may not be dealing directly with the CDFI with the way the policy is written right now, but working with them as a partner, they are willing to put up as much as we are to make this type of thing happen.
I don't have a problem approving the policy. I agree with Commissioner Stout. Just because we approve the policy doesn't mean we're giving away the money. My only fear, and I've said this in my one-on-one meetings before, is I want to make sure whatever company has skin in the game. So I have a big problem with just giving money and then saying, oh yeah, it didn't work out, whatever. Anything free is of no value. And if they're not in some way at risk for losing something if it doesn't work, I have a fear. So my only thing is, we have the three options, and the one where we just give them the grant, unless there's some serious backing on their end. I have a big fear with it, because anything free is of no value. Hey, we're going to give you $50,000 to try this out. Great, didn't work out. Oh well, got my 50 grand. There's got to be skin in the game from the business. That's my only real issue with, or not even issue, but hesitation with seeing this go forward, is there's got to be skin in the game from the person playing the game.
And to that point, there is a clawback provision for the grants. So when we use the terminology non-recoverable, we're talking about not making the company pay back the grant to replenish the fund in the future, but within each contract that we set forth for the grant, they will have to comply. We work with the IHL to make sure that they're in compliance, and if they're not in compliance, there's a clawback provision and there's a 10% interest on top of that. So if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing with the money, there are consequences.
We don't get a lot of chances to talk, so just a little back and forth. And I agree. Again, my only thing is making sure that there's a vested interest on all parties to succeed, and that's my only request.
Additionally, that can be one of the considerations as each of these applicants is vetted. So, for example, if a project is a $300,000 project, they may be asking the county to put a $150,000 grant, and they have funding for the other $150,000. And that is something that could be part of the vetting process that would be something under consideration. There may be grants that are asking, or applicants that are asking for full funding, but there may be applicants that are asking for only partial funding. And that is something that can be taken into consideration when vetting these applications.
And as you said earlier, I do not agree with any full funding of any of them. So, I mean, out the gate, I'm going to say a full funding is a bad idea.
Go ahead, Commissioner, if you want to go ahead.
Betsy, and Commissioner Stout, I thank you for bringing this forward. And you know, this is a great program. I'm a little cynical on some areas, but your heart's in the right place. I appreciate that. I like the changes that were made insofar as oversight. I like that. I've got a question insofar as the 30% retail space. Does it? And I just skimmed through this area there. Is it? Is there an option that says you will have it in the front, or can they stash it in the back and have their spam in the front?
I thought spam was healthy.
But yeah, the low sodium is very healthy.
Depending on how it's prepared.
We have the flexibility to set those specific criteria any way that the court wishes to move forward. So my recommendation would be that the IHL engage the Food Trust, which is one of our national partners who has expertise in this area, and we would do that through our own funding. This would not be part of the $500,000 that you're setting aside. But my plan, if this gets approved, is that we would engage them in a contract to help us provide best practice recommendations with regards to how to set up those criteria. Do we want to prioritize that the food is in the front of the store, or are there other considerations that would be more important to ensure that there's signage at the front of the store if it's too much of a cost inhibition to put the food at the front of the store? If it's a cooler and the only access to the cooler is the back of the store, then there's other marketing tools within the store that could be employed, for example. So there's lots of options there, and that's why the value, as has already been mentioned, with the fact that you're not approving any specific details right now. You're just approving having the program in place so that our institute can start moving forward, engaging potential stakeholders who are interested in applying to the program, and then working with our national partners who have some expertise deploying these same kinds of funds in other parts of the country to set up all those specific details. Those would all come back to you. We would welcome feedback with ideas like that to ensure that those are integrated into the individual programs.
And Doctor, I appreciate that. And really, as we move forward, I had a conversation with Betsy that I like option number 2, where we start, and all these concerns are very. I agree with Commissioner Haggerty that there's some areas that we have to really watch. But I think if we start with one area, and if one, as Betsy mentioned, comes up that says, hey, this is a $300,000 possibility, that we can move in many directions. But in my background, I've learned that if you start walking first before we run, we're usually more successful, or we can tweak whatever areas we saw as deficient or positive, and we go from there.
Sure.
Mr. Haggerty?
You used a word that I really like, and I think we need to remember, and that's recommend. I think we need to be very careful about what kind of government reach we have on these businesses and forcing them to put stuff certain places and do stuff certain ways. I hope not to see this policy have some kind of thing where we're telling people we're going to tell you how to run your business and oh, you got a candy bar in the front, not in the back. We're clawing you back, or I mean, as much as I love and respect the comfort of government, that also terrifies me. So I think we need to be careful how much oversight we're going to have.
It really takes a one-on-one approach with each potential partner to find out what's going to help them be successful as a business, because we don't want to harm anyone's business in such a way that it's challenging for them to stay open, because then nobody wins. And part of vetting the potential partners in this program is building that relationship and having a good sense of how committed they are to the process of increasing access to healthy and affordable food. And we've already developed partnerships with some food retailers in this community where we know they really care about this. They're making some of these changes on their own. It's not about us telling them to do it. It's about us supporting their efforts to do that. And we would continue to develop those kinds of relationships. So this is a first step that allows us to more publicly say, hey, this program now exists, and start to develop the relationships and build the enthusiasm for participating in the program.
I do have a couple of questions before you sit down, Dr. Wickham. I don't know. I don't think anyone's blowing their nose. It sounds like it's... Is there a demand? Like, if this is approved and we go out, have you seen folks really feel like this could be something that would benefit them?
Yes, so we've had several different for-profit and not-for-profit entities engaged with the Institute for Healthy Living in some of the coalition work that we've been building since the report was published, or as part of that process, that the report that reflected that map that was shown earlier. And so we've got several partners that are already interested. They need to know what the opportunities are, what the details are before they can decide whether or not to engage and move forward. But then once the program is set up, it then gives us a better ability to reach out to more community partners. We can work with each of you to identify business owners within the districts that you represent and find out where the interest is. We can do a wider outreach through media channels. This is a really exciting step that the county is taking. This is the only county in the country that has ever done this. All other efforts have been done at the state level or in municipalities. And so this is going to receive some national attention, especially in the food access community. And that alone will help us bring attention to what we're doing throughout the county, which will hopefully bring more people coming forward seeking to learn more about the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think, regionally there are municipalities like Las Cruces and also, I know that you all have been talking to the city of El Paso to also kind of join in, and I think, with the county being the leader and taking the first step, it may help push other governmental agencies within the region to also take on something like this as time goes on.
I think that's true.
Okay. And then just a couple of other questions. So is it possible, would it be a huge inconvenience if it was a recoverable loan at this point in the process? I mean, I don't know what you're hearing out in the community. I do like the idea of the split where we do 150, they put up 150, maybe some kind of collaboration there that would help make maybe the court feel a little bit better. But is a recoverable loan an option?
I think all of those things are options if the county is able to make that work from a logistical standpoint. And there's options such as partnering with the CDFI, requiring that there be some kind of grant. If the county doesn't want to manage taking the money back or setting up that kind of process, working with a CDFI in parallel and saying all projects have to be 50-50 or 1/3, 2/3, whatever the court would like to see, then the CDFI has more of the responsibility to track the success and make sure that the money gets paid back if the program doesn't progress as initially agreed upon. So all those options are available, and we will work to develop those details in the first coming months after this is approved, with your input and feedback and approval, of course.
Questions? Commissioner?
No, go ahead if you have.
I think I'm okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Judge. Well, first, I wanted just to thank the staff and all of our partners. I know a lot of time went into this, and thank you, Betsy, thank you, Arturo, and our partners. It's very evident that a lot of time has gone into this, and we do appreciate that. For me, just one of the things that I think has developed since we passed this during our budget season is that we have a lot of requests for this funding on the Economic Development Fund. We have this $500,000 request. We also have the request from Borderplex for the additional funding for additional flights to Washington and to New York. And then there's also a push for an advertising push, which is also approximately in the neighborhood of another $500,000, which is all everyone is seeking to get the funding from the economic development funds that we've set aside. But that would amount to 50% of the funding that we set aside not going at all to job creation initiatives. And that was one of my big concerns when we set up this fund. I mean, so personally, I'd like to see another option, a fourth option here, where we prioritize. Is this going to supersede the court's desire for the direct flight options to New York and Washington. Does this supersede the advertising push that's coming for this? I think we need to sort that out before we decide, if we're going to go with the full 500,000 in this. I don't have a problem authorizing the policy to jumpstart this program to see what interest is out there, but I also have a lot of reservation of allocating the full amount given these other priorities that we have on this economic development fund. The request for the additional flights, I think, is coming in the neighborhood of 400,000. If the court wants to, fund that and then dedicate another 100,000 to achieve the 500,000 from the economic development fund, I'd be okay with that to jumpstart the policy. But I think we need to get those priorities in order first.
I can note that in other HFFI efforts nationally, job creation is a big part of the individual projects that have occurred. And we can certainly take that into consideration in reviewing proposals. So if you want job creation to be a priority so that that consideration is built into HFFI, then the proposals can be reviewed, and the call for those proposals can highlight that we want to see ideas that do promote job creation. There's some great examples nationally where the development of these HFFI programs have not just increased healthy food access, but have created jobs in these neighborhoods and then drawn in additional retail to those neighborhoods, which adds more jobs. And so it's really pretty exciting what components HFFI can kind of align and bring together, with healthy food access being part of it, but it really in the end is an economic development approach.
And on that point, I wanted to also iterate that if we decide to not use or dedicate a small amount of funding to this project, we may lose the opportunity to partner with the CDFI. We may lose the opportunity to have a CDFI match the dollars that we're putting in. So we may lose the opportunity for even further economic dollars or dollars to be put into this program. That's the only the warning that I would give when we're talking about reducing the amount of funding that we set aside for this, is that we want to make sure that this has the largest impact possible. And if we're going to reduce it to 50,000 or 100,000 or something like that, we may not be successful with having a large impact.
Now, just to be clear, the CDFI is not taken into consideration right now. So, for example, we went with option 2, we'd be putting up that capital. We would have a list of maybe 5 great projects that can come before the court. The court can then decide which one of those projects to go with if we went with example 2 or option 2. But the CDFI would not be taken into consideration at this point. What if the company or the nonprofit wanted to use a CDFI? Like, I guess I'm still trying to figure that piece out. Like, are they completely removed at this point? And then once we see the success of this initial program, would we then say, hey, CDFI, we want to partner with you now? Or could the business or nonprofit say, you know what, we'll take 150 now, we'll take 150 from the CDFI? Is that even an option? Does that make sense?
Well, I know from the perspective of People Fund, who we've been in conversations with, they're ready to partner as soon as the county wants their partnership. So they don't have to be excluded from the process. If there's a reason why the county does not want the CDFI engaged in the initial part, that's fine as well. But that option is there up front, which allows support for larger projects, and larger projects can tend to have larger impact.
So they're an option. Yeah. So I guess if someone comes back and says, look, we can make this happen at a really larger scale, it'll add jobs, they'll be at the very front of our business, but it's $1 million endeavor. We'll take 500 from the county. Let's engage the CDFI. They'll put up the other 500, and then we're whole. So that would be a project where it could work. Yes. Okay. I'm also supportive. I do think that initially, because I think it's a new project and it's something that we want to see succeed, that maybe going with option 2 would be ideal. Maybe keeping the $500,000, assuming that we can go up to that level, but it could come well under. But at least we have a project. It would be neat if And it's going to come back to us relatively quickly given the timeline. It looks like February at some point, February, March. So if the court could get a presentation at that point on maybe, 3 to 5 options, and then the court can mull those over, make sure that they feel comfortable with any clawbacks that are in place or the split of the money, and at that point continue the conversations about what looks like it's going to really succeed for us in this first venture. That would be ideal. That's my perspective, but at least for me, at least having that one success story would be great, and being able to expand the program in the future, because the one thing we don't want is, like Commissioner Haggerty said, to loan the money, it fails, then what? Then the county is not interested in engaging anymore. We need to work to make this successful.
Additionally, Judge, on that note, when the applicants, okay, so a couple things. One, on the timeline, as we mentioned, we do believe that the Institute for Healthy Living will need a little bit of time. Originally we were hoping to have the program approved earlier, and the timeline was based on having already had the program in place. So there may be a little bit of time needed to, one, do the call for applicants and do the vetting of applicants. So I don't want to swear that they're going to be back in February, but they'll definitely be back as soon as possible once the policy is approved. The other thing is I know it's just been my experience that the court likes to have options. And so when we bring back the proposals, the recommendations from the Institute for Healthy Living, even if you all tell us item number 2, but if when we get the applicants, there may be some compelling reason why there's either 2 projects that would complement each other. I mean, we're not going to absolutely if there's something that we think the court would be interested in or would be beneficial, we're going to definitely keep you all aware so that the court doesn't make a decision in a vacuum without knowing what else was an option or to consider. But we would like that direction just so we can move forward based on these options and get the ball rolling and get the timeline started with the Institute for Healthy Living.
Patsy Lopez, Assistant County Attorney, and I just wanted to clarify for the court that legally what the options that the department is proposing, and each of them, it's approval of the policy as is. So the CDFI option would still be available to the court. It's really a matter of the authorization that the court is giving to the department as to how to proceed in these options. But the CDFI is in the policy. Oh, well, and right, and that was still discussion, right, between the court and changes that were going to be made to the final policy. But the policy is the policy. I just want to clarify from a legal perspective that the policy is your overall policy of what you're setting out. However, should the court decide to proceed with these grant agreements, clawbacks would require a grant agreement between the county and the individual to which the grant was being awarded. And so those provisions would be set out specifically there, not in your policy. Does that make sense?
And it would be good to.
If you want, I'm sorry.
It would be good to get the process started sooner than later, because it will take time to advertise, get the applications, have the court vet it, have something drafted by legal. That puts us into early summer, potentially, hopefully not that long. But the sooner we do it, the better. And I think the nice thing too is that that still gives the court a layer of protection, in that if we get the proposals back and just nothing seems like it's appealing, that the court could still come back and say, look, we're not gonna bite right now. Let's go out for another call or something. Or at that point, we'll learn what it is that we're looking for. So there are still levels of protection for the court to take action.
Yeah, and I just think, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I just worry about placing limitations, because it could be that we get 2 really great projects, and I mean, I guess we could change our mind later. But I think that for today's purposes is, just creating this policy, having it in our toolbox, in our economic development toolbox, and later we can decide whether we want to spend the money or not, or how many projects we want to do. That's totally up to us in the future, right? But I just want to make sure that we have this policy so that people understand, that it's available, and then we can have a large number of turnout, because if we say, oh, we're only going to do 1 project, then maybe it will deter people from wanting to compete, because they'll be like, oh, maybe my project's not as important, or it's not as going to be as impactful, or it's not as big as this other project, so I'm probably not going to have the opportunity for this money.
And if I may also, in response to Commissioner Pettis's comments about prioritizing all of the requests we have, something that I do expect will happen is we have a request right now on the minimum revenue guarantee. So that one, I believe we need to move on in the next couple weeks, whether or not the county is willing to commit some funding to that minimum revenue guarantee. We have an item on the agenda for next week for the minimum revenue guarantee. So the court will have made a decision one way or the other on how much it's going to allocate to that project, if any. And then the other item on the marketing, I expect that will be coming back sometime in early January. And so I believe by the time that these projects are vetted and brought back, the court will know how much of the economic impact fund it has used, and we'll be able to take that into consideration as they decide how many projects or what, depending on what you discussed today, if you decide you want to do less or want to do more, you'll know exactly how much of the funding you've committed to these other, if any, to these other initiatives as well.
And of course, the court can change or make any decision that they want. But I was under the impression that when we passed the budget and we voted on this impact fund, that $500,000 would be for HFFI. I remember very distinctly listening to Wally with his presentation during budget, saying that we would be creating an impact fund, and 500,000 of it would be for HFFI. Obviously, that can change if that's the will of the court, but I wouldn't have voted for the impact funds if that was not part of the deal.
And that's why I just bring the point, because these two requests for the minimum revenue guarantee and this advertising initiative came after budget, and I think that's where it's just, if we look at all three competing priorities, I mean, where would they have fit, for the funding it is that we allocated? And I think that's sort of the trouble that I have in just looking at the funding source for each of these things. I mean, would the minimum revenue guarantee probably superseded the HFFI? I don't know, and I think that's what we have to sort out.
And I will remind you all, I think we have a very important project that's still pending. It's a very large economic development project pending that we're still working on that would need, I believe it would need some economic impact fund dollars to make it happen. And I think that's something, you can't lose sight of all of these things when you're looking at this one pot of money.
I think at the worst case scenario, when we talked about that project, that a large portion could go to that, and then the remainder would go toward the three projects. That would wipe out the economic impact fund for this year, which is, kind of tough.
And the request is actually the full request that we're negotiating or have been asked to consider. There wouldn't be enough money to do anything other than the full request would use all of the economic impact fund except for this $500,000. So there would be no, if the court decided, and I don't know, I mean, it's still all being negotiated and being still very preliminary, but.
I mean, I'm okay with moving forward with the policy, continuing to allocate the $500,000, knowing that it could come in under the $500,000 depending on what's brought back to the court. I mean, it could be a project for $150,000, and that's all the court decides to move forward with.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, we will make the decision on how much money is going to go towards each project in the future. I just want to make sure. I just want this policy to be created so that we can start the process of advertising and then bringing in applicants and looking at utilizing it.
Commissioners? Any other?
We're not set for action.
It's not set for action. Okay.
We would have to bring it back on Monday. I would assume, if we wanted to.
Yes, you all are only here to receive a presentation and give some direction to your department head, and any further action on the policy itself would have to be brought back to the court.
I think the problem with Commissioner Perez is if we have money and people know we have money, people are going to come ask for the money. There's always going to be someone asking for the money. So finding people to get the money is never going to be a hard part. And always finding good reasons to spend the money is never going to be a hard part. But I agree, this was not my favorite project in budget. It's not too hard to find the videotape to prove it. But I see the value in it. I understand it. The budget passed with the understanding that this $500,000 was going to go to that. I again ask we make sure that there's just as much risk, if not more risk, on the person getting the money as the county. That's my only request with this budget, with this money.
That's my big one too. There has to be some kind of support from them. Any other questions, commissioners? So we'll put this back on for Monday and we'll take action at that point.
And thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Arturo.
Thank
to
you
the rest
all.
of the Economic Development Department that worked on this, to my own staff, to the IHL, Chris Walker from the American Heart Association, who really wrote the policy for us and has been, I know, meeting with all of us and making sure that we are all understanding of what's happening here and making sure that our questions are taken care of, and of course Patsy with legal. Thank you very much for all the work and the support that you've provided for this.
Have this on for Monday.
Thank you.
And now the 6-hour exec meeting before anyone want to vote, because it seems to always happen.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay with this one.
Did you read the contract?
So no action for item number 3. Commissioners Court will recess into executive session to discuss item 4A pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.087. Commissioners Court will reconvene to take official action. session. Item number 5, discuss and take appropriate action regarding a Chapter 381 Economic Development Agreement with Project OSCE.
Morning, Judge, Commissioners. While we're waiting for Alexis to pull up this item, I'm pleased today to present to you Betsy Keller, your County Administrator. I'm pleased to present to you Project OSCE. And what we're asking for the court to approve today is a Chapter 381 Economic Development with Project OSCE, also known as Kurakabi Incorporated. So Project OSCE is a financial software support system that provides tools to the education system for customers to interact with their education provider or care provider for their children. And so, Alexis. Again, Project OSCE, Kurakabi, is a complete school management system. It's a high-tech approach to track and manage billing, collections, and payables for the education-related system. It has also created a digital kiosk for attendance records, emergency communications, online applications, and registrations. The company is currently out of Berkeley, California, and is proposing to establish operations in downtown El Paso. The project will include the employment of 19 full-time positions with an average wage of over $40,100 per year, which is approximately 30% above the county's median county wage. We are asking for the court to consider giving a training investment allotment to the company after the company has invested its own funding to provide up to $225,000 worth of training. A little bit more about the company is the company adds to a vibrant downtown culture of tech revitalization. As you know, earlier this year, the court also approved agreement with 5 Stars, who's part of this tech revitalization efforts in downtown El Paso. They'll add revenue to local businesses, restaurants, hotels. We expect 50 to 100 plus hotel stays per year. Also, the opportunity to attract and grow additional departments such as coding and IT. The technology businesses are not as prevalent in the region, and this is a new opportunity for our area and our workforce. This project would also help us with access and familiarity to venture capital firms for local tech startups. And it brings familiarity of the tech industry for mentorship to young, inspiring entrepreneurs in our region. And it's an opportunity to further the creation of a foundation for a business technology center cluster. Apologize. Again, we are recommending that the court approve up to $400 per employee for customized training. This would be training that is generally more specific to soft skills, customer service, things of that nature. And then up to 19 employees, $400 per employee. The county's impact would be $7,600. The company would be investing over $25,000 in this training that we would be helping to fund a portion of that. Then the other additional funding is $25,000 to offset their training cost, which is considered proprietary. This is training specific to their product, their sales model, their business model, that would be funded by the company, and the county would reimburse up to $25,000 over the 2-year period. They would have to have spent 50% of the budget in year 1 and 100% of the budget by the end of the 24 months into operation, for a total impact to the county of $32,600. Also, there is a project being considered by the city. We do not know what that final number will look like, but an estimate could be that it would be up to $80,000, with the total county incentive and city incentive package possibly totaling $112,600. And with that, I believe if the court has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if you'd like to hear from the company either before or after the county takes this under consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Keller. I appreciate it. I was wondering if maybe Mr. Barela or someone from Borderplex could introduce the guests that are here with us today. That would be fantastic. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Judge. Commissioners, John Barela for the record, CEO of the Borderplex Alliance. It's an absolute pleasure to be back before you. This is a wonderful opportunity for El Paso and the Borderplex region, a wonderful company, great management. I've had the wonderful opportunity to talk in great depth about their plans for the future and their respective backgrounds. And each of the people that are involved in this wonderful company are just incredibly talented. I was saying out there earlier that they're really geniuses. It's amazing what they do and what they think of, and it's well capitalized and just a great group of folks. So it's my pleasure to introduce the leadership group that's with us here today. First of all, we have the founder and CEO of Curacubby, Stephen Kwong.
Morning. Thank you for being here.
His brother, and I don't know, we were having a debate about who the better looking one was, who's on the board of advisors, and he's also a senior executive for Google, Daniel Kwong.
Thank you for being here.
We have Pierre Wolf, who's the vice president at Triron and a member of the board of advisors. Pierre.
Thank you for being here. Good morning.
And then finally, and certainly not least important, is the Chief Technology Officer, Brian Meckler.
Good morning.
So, they're here visiting us today, and they're certainly going to become part of the fabric of our community, and they're just great people. I've really enjoyed talking with them. Culture very, very nicely. So that's the leadership team. Judge and commissioners, thank you again for the consideration and, as always, the support for business in the private sector here in El Paso County. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? I do have just a very quick set of comments to make. We're very excited to have you here. I don't know what the vote will look like, but I will say that we are very excited to have you here nonetheless. We have been working very closely with the city of El Paso to create an environment that is open and welcoming to our business community. It's even more exciting when we're starting to see the financial technology sector taking note of El Paso and our abilities to host you, to have your business grow here and be a part of all that is exciting about El Paso, from our downtown revitalization, our transportation efforts around healthcare. I mean, we really are moving the needle when it comes to so many areas of our community, and we are very happy that you've taken note of us, especially when you're looking at other communities like Atlanta and Salt Lake and Denver. El Paso compares to no other city. In my opinion, we are the best community in the country, but I have a very skewed perspective. But we are very excited that you've chosen to take a look at El Paso, and we're happy to have you here.
Thank you very much for your graciousness.
Did you want to say anything before the court? Would you like to come up, please? Yeah, if you'll come up. If you'll just state your name for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Kwong, for the record. And first of all, thank you, Judge and Commissioners, for taking the opportunity to learn more about us and giving us this opportunity. I am the CEO and co-founder of Curacubby. We are an integrated billing, payments, and business platform for schools of all sizes. Originally based out of the Silicon Valley, but now we can be very proud to say we're also based out of El Paso, hopefully. I want to personally thank the Borderplex Alliance, as well as everyone in the city, as well as the county, for helping making this a possibility and hopefully a reality as well. Curacubby didn't start from an idea. It started out of a need. There's a personal story behind it. You see, besides being a business entrepreneur, I'm also a father with a son with autism. And here's how the story begins. As a parent co-founder of a preschool for children with special needs, I experienced firsthand how operators of preschool, child care programs, and children enrichment services were largely being ignored by software companies as a whole. At Curacubby, our mission is to help preschools, schools, and children's services providers save time and money by optimizing their business processes and enabling digital payments for their consumers. The success of these organizations has a direct impact on the future of our children and society at large. Currently, over 500,000 service providers in the U.S. have been left out of the technology revolution, while at the same time, their customers are expecting digital experiences as well as mobile financial transactions. We're here to change that for the better. And after researching and vetting out many cities across the U.S., we can say without a doubt that the community of El Paso is the perfect partner for this journey. We thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Did anyone else wish to make any comments? No? Okay. Commissioners, any questions before a motion is made? And if not, I'm happy to make a motion.
I'll second.
I would go ahead then. Ms. Kelly, did you have any additional comments? No? Okay. So I make a motion to approve and authorize El Paso County to enter into a 381 agreement, Economic Development Program agreement with Curacabi Inc.
Second.
Commissioner Perez?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Haggerty?
Aye.
Judge vote?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Much congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd like just to add something that you said, your journey will end and begin here. And one of the things that you will say, I can guarantee it, that why didn't we think of El Paso sooner? So welcome, and I know you will be flourishing here. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. We're really good.
And I believe we have a press conference at 11 o'clock, and so we look forward to seeing you all there in just a few minutes. So, excellent. Thank you.
This concludes today's special session at 10:33.